cost too much. That used to be the crux years ago, a few, but it's a AA plus rating.
Why should the U.S. have a AAA if they're about to default? I mean, you could say that Apple in some ways
that. Nice
is, well, I mean, this is really a big question, right? What's in a credit rating and how important is it to maintain that and what's required to do so at a time when it is so rare, even for a behemoth, again, with a cash pile the size of a pretty big economy.
Let's get smart on this right now. Dalip Singh joins us, chief global economist at PGIM Fixed Income, with serious experience recently in the White House. Dalip, in the office, is it tomorrow? They're going to have a meeting, a confab on the debt. It's all politics, isn't it?
Morning, Tom. Morning, Lisa. Look, talking is always better than not talking, but I'd be surprised if we get a decisive breakthrough tomorrow. The incentives are just not yet in place. McCarthy could lose his speakership if he folds early to the president with a clean increase in the debt limit. The president can't give a nod to anything near the scale of spending cuts proposed by McCarthy because they would undercut much of his domestic agenda and lose his political base. So I'm afraid market stress is still what's needed to create cover for face-saving compromise. And that's why, perversely, market complacency is self-defeating.
You and Gene Sperling have been very good at this, of trying to link this policy dynamic into Wall Street. As Lisa mentioned earlier, Wall Street seems soundly removed from this discussion, this debate. Are they correct on that, to be removed, to not worry about this debt crisis?
You know, look, it's muscle memory, and that muscle memory is dangerous because the context has changed pretty dramatically from the last time we had a serious flirtation with default back in 2011. For one, Congress is as polarized as it's been in our country's history. Second, you know, we are trying to roll over a debt stock that's twice as large as it was in 2011. Three, foreign holdings of treasuries are up to $7 trillion. That's almost $3 trillion higher than what we had in 2011. Four, back in 2011, Europe was in an existential debt crisis. China had yet to lure serious inflows from abroad. Digital assets had yet to go mainstream. There were no alternatives to dollars. That's changed. And lastly, and I think most importantly, we're currently the U.S. spearheading the most severe economic sanctions campaign against a G20 country in financial history. That creates incentives, geopolitical incentives, for countries to hedge. The debt ceiling just needlessly adds impetus to those incentives at a time of geopolitical peril.
Why do you think, Dalip, from your vantage point of having worked at the White House, of having worked at the Treasury, of having worked at the Fed, all of these different agencies, why do you think things have gotten so dysfunctional in Washington, D.C.?
Yeah, I mean, the debt ceiling really is just symptomatic of that polarization, Lisa. I mean, I think it's derivative of the atomization of the media, extreme levels of inequality, and technology that allows political movements to gain scale at speeds that we haven't seen before. And look, now we're on the cusp of doing something that great powers just don't do. They don't default, they don't talk about default, they don't think about default, and your measure of greatness is when no country questions whether you would ever do so. So it's brought us to this point.
Some people would say, Dalip, that there already are economic consequences to even having this discussion in such real time, and given the fact that it does have a different kind of more polarized nature to it. What are the longer term impacts, even if there is a solution that is found at the last minute when the market finally wakes up and applies the real pressure that Washington's waiting for?
Lisa, dollar primacy is a national treasure. It allows us to fund our government at 20 to 50 basis points cheaper than it otherwise would. That adds up to real money, $150 billion for every 50 basis points on treasury yields. It allows us to absorb a shock, like the 2011 downgrade of our credit rating, and it allows us to deliver a shock. All of that is being put at risk in terms of the long-term scarring effects of this type of debate. Just remember, dollar primacy is nothing more than a network, okay? It's rooted in trust and inertia and an assumed lack of alternatives. But every network, whether it's in biology or ecology or in finance, they have tipping points. They're usually psychological tipping points that you can't see in advance. And we're now pushing ourselves towards what I would consider to be a very dangerous place the closer we get to the X date. So this is very serious. A lot is at stake.
Well, this is actually a really important point that a lot of people argue against, saying that the loss of the dollar's supremacy as the global currency has been overstated. The death of the dollar has been perhaps overwrought. However, other people like yourself saying, actually, it's becoming much more real. What are you looking for in the data to show that that is actually what is transpiring, that people are moving away from the dollar as the main dominant currency of exchange?
You're not going to see it on paper. I mean, the measure of primacy is really, do you use the dollar to buy or sell stuff? Do you use it to borrow money? And do you use it to price transactions? And on paper, there's nothing to see here. This is a tail risk, but we're gambling with an exorbitant privilege that has incalculable benefits. And so it's the kind of tail risk that you should never take. That's the point.
I looked, Dalip, at this, and it's a history which you studied at Carolina and also up at MIT. The ageless history of our debt caution, I'm going to call it our almost debt religiosity. What do the people where they say, we got to get rid of the debt, it's just like Apple's corporate debt. Heilbronner and others wrote a book 40 years ago saying, no, it's not. How do you respond to people that viscerally feel this government debt is bad?
Yeah, this is a legitimate question, Tom. I don't think we're in a crisis, however. So long as our nominal GDP growth is higher than the average interest we pay, the math of debt sustainability improves over time. And right now, that's the case. Our nominal GDP growth year over year is about 7%. It's actually been in the double digits for much of the past 2 years. The weighted average interest rate in our public debt is 2.6%. Now, for that to be sustained, of course, the market has to believe the money we're borrowing will be put to productive use. That's the key question. And I think, look, that argues for the kind of investments that the public sector is making where the private sector is underinvested. R&D, infrastructure, technology, programs that grow a workforce, make them more productive. That's really the measure of whether the debt that we're borrowing is going to raise our nominal GDP growth to levels that can sustain a rising interest rate cost.
And with that beautiful explanation, good enough for Olivier Blanchard or Joseph Stiglitz, if they've studied this as well, wrapped around our start and the rest, the trust mechanism is that government will put it into good projects. Can't that be discussed tomorrow among a fractured polity in Washington?
It can, but not with a gun to our head. The consequence of not reaching agreement can't be, we're going to burn the house down. We absolutely should have a discussion about spending and revenue levels. How are we going to use our resources to solve structural problems that the private sector won't solve by itself? Extreme inequality, social disparity, vulnerabilities in our supply chains, the climate crisis. All of that should be on the table. The point is, how do we have that discussion in a way that doesn't make us a global spectacle?
Right.
That's the question.
This has been wonderful. Dalip Singh, my most favorite discussion so far on this debt idiocy. He's with PGIM Fixed Income, of course, his public service to the nation within the Biden administration. Lisa, here is the exact quote from truly an expert on these bond offerings. Robert Schiffman is priceless at Bloomberg Intelligence. Quote, progress towards the net cash neutral goal should benefit further from its planned 5-tranche bond issuance, particularly with proceeds targeted for shareholder returns that likely exceed $100 billion in 2023. That goes exactly to what you were saying.
And this really flies in the face of the narrative that people have been putting out there, which is that the era of borrowing money in the bond market to buy back shares was over because the relative value proposition didn't look as good. Well, for Apple, evidently it does. And basically, they've got nothing else to do with their money except for buy back their shares, which will only make their shares more valuable, given that there'll be fewer of them. It just really raises a question, Tom. Is there really just a tale of two halves here? The companies that can do this and those that can't get capital, that can't get financing, that are struggling in some sort of credit crunch, and it causes that, dichotomy even to grow greater.
I would suggest it's always been the case. I just am not going to believe that there was a We Are the World, everybody got bond deals done in any decade in the last 100 years or so, even 200 years. But I will say the concentration here of superiority, Michael Mauboussin way out front on this at Credit Suisse a million years ago, it's the concentration of these tech companies and other big companies as well. John's favorite LVMH, it's same thing.
But does it get even easier and easier for them to dominate at an era where it's even that much more difficult for the have-nots to gain financing? In 2013, 2014, 2015, companies were getting financing that people were thinking to themselves, how is this possible?
It's a $5 billion tranche, right? The 5 tranche deal is $1 billion each. Boom, 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 boom. I got 110 billion short-term debt, long-term debt for Apple. So it's, for Monday morning TV and radio, it's 5% they're going to add on.
Right, but it's not nothing compared to the debt loads of most companies, and this really is just because they can and they will, and there is plenty of demand, as we've been hearing about.
Did you get a phone call yet? Maybe that's why Farrell left.
to go answer the syndicate desk of Barclays. Yeah, something
John,
like that.
how much would you like?
They've got plenty of demand.
I can see. There it is. We'll keep you abreast of this. It's an important story. We make jokes of it, but truly historic to see this corporation come out with another deal. Adam Tooze coming up. This is
to Trading Capital's daily live stream of the market open. Today is currently May the 8th, and as we kick off the brand new trading session, right now there's weakness in tech, strength in the S&P and the Russell. The regional banks and banking sector as a whole is showing incredible strength. So there's a couple opportunities that we'll go over. Natural gas is strong right now. You do have oil also trending higher as of now, trading around 73.20 per barrel. It's actually up as we speak around 2.78%. So energy is clearly going to be the strong sector of the session. Now, I pulled off about 5 or 6 charts yesterday on Twitter regarding potential gap up and gap down earning plays. The first one that I posted was Tyson Foods. And basically, I calculated a couple levels, had the short levels. Obviously, it's gapping down, so we're looking to go long. Basically, the long levels on Tyson Foods is coming up into the support area right now. I believe the low is around 54. It's at 54.43. But we're looking at 53.04 and 52.57. That is a 3 and 3 1/4 standard deviation move away from the mean. So those will be the potential long trades. TSN, we are looking at a long at that level. Basically, you can also see this beautiful parallel channel. Let it pierce that level, and then maybe we can get a little bit lower and catch a little bit of a bounce scalp play. We're also looking at BNTX. That one isn't hitting our level. It is gapping up, but our short level is much, much higher at this point in time. Just scrolling through here. You do have Coinbase getting hit today a little bit. So Coinbase is actually falling about 4% in the after hours. Now, this is coming on the back of Bitcoin acting a little weak today. So Bitcoin had basically a 3-day sell. Now you are hitting some support, but the big level that I'm watching on Bitcoin is this pivot low over here. Basically, that's going to be the big level on Bitcoin. We also have Nvidia taking a slight breather. Apple finally got its first downgrade today on the session after having such a tremendous move to the upside. It's still on watch for a potential breakout here, but it looks like it may not get that confirmation to the upside. That's just some day trade lines I'll erase. In terms of other trades we're also looking at, let me just scroll through my list here. There's a few other earnings after the bell today, so I think it's going to be fairly quiet today. I'm not expecting much of a big move. You have KKR after the bell. We've worked out a couple levels on the short and the long side. We also have PayPal after the bell, PYPL. So PayPal is actually gapping up slightly, but really it's not at any sort of a level that I would take. I have an aggressive level, conservative level, and then same thing on the long side. We also have MKC set to report earnings after the bell. Really no movement there. SU is also on watch. Really no trade set up there. SU is actually looking a little bit weak out of all the energy names. So potentially if the earnings comes in negative, or potentially if it comes in positive and it gaps up to our short level, you can see the top of that wedge. That would look for a potential entry on the short side. If we were to fall sharply lower, we have an entry on the long side. So XOM's catching a nice bid. You also have CVX catching a little bit of a bid. So energy as a whole is probably going to be the strong sector because you do have natural gas and oil up right now, and you have the dollar weak. Let's run through gold right now. Gold obviously is holding up pretty well. It's still above that 2,000 level, but it failed to make that confirmed breakout on the daily. And you potentially have this little bit of a weekly topping tail in formation. It's on the borderline. I mean, this body is pretty much two candle lengths of this wick, so it does kind of fit the criteria. Would have liked to see it push down a little bit more, but it is on watch. You also have Zscaler, which is gapping up right now. In terms of a short level on Zscaler, let me just look at the daily chart here. So you are coming up into these two moving averages, the 50, the 100. I would personally wait until the 100 daily moving average. So that sits at about 114.16. So right around there, I'll draw a line. And then let's just see on the weekly chart if we get another moving average. So there's no other moving average there. But really that's the only level. You do have a weekly gap just slightly above. So aggressive traders take the first level. On the short side, conservative can take the second level. I'll probably, depending on how the market opens, I may take the first level around this 114.16. So really, there's only Tyson Foods on watch for a long, Zscaler on watch for a short, and that's pretty much going to sum it up as of now. And we'll just have to wait and see how the markets open. You see there was news along the weekend that Binance was halting withdrawals due to congestion. Seems a little shady in my opinion. So right now, we will see how the dollar holds up. Yields are up, oil's up. Bitcoin's lagging, but it is bouncing off of the lows. AMD also received news on Friday that their Microsoft rumors were fake, that Microsoft's not reporting. So that should see some downside. We'll have to wait and see. You also have Estee Lauder EL, which took that big gap down, catching a bid. So that's interesting to see. Just want to scroll through some of the upgrades and downgrades. So some of the upgrades and downgrades that happened today. Let me just scroll through here. So gapping up, you have SIX, AXSM, DK, BNTX, HNI, VTRS, Berkshire Hathaway, of course, PACW. In terms of PACW for a short, this one's risky because it's under $1 billion market cap. So I don't really like to short this one because it's such a small name and it has been beaten down to a pulp. But obviously, it's very intriguing as a trader when you see it up 80% on Friday and then another 30 to 40% now. You think it's an easy short, but it's not really an easy short when it's a small micro cap bank stock that's already down, plus 90% on the year. But TSN's on watch. Zscaler, I'm interested in DraftKings for a potential short as well. It would have to take out the previous pivot high. I'm also looking at Eli Lilly for another short at around this 440 level. That's kind of my level that I have mapped out. And then CVS, interesting. Hopefully that one flushes down a little bit more to about 64. That would be my long entry on CVS. It is beaten down to a pulp. Other than that, we should just see how the markets open, and then we'll just take it step by step. AXSM, that one's gapping up. No real trade that I'm seeing on that one. VTRS, another one gapping up. Alright, so we'll keep TSN on the radar because that's probably going to be the more likelier candidate. We'll also keep the S&P 500 here up to see the market barometer. And you can see the spiders are at resistance, this key trend line. It's a big line in the sand that the spiders need to hold. And then there is this potential inverse. You have this left shoulder, head, gap up, right shoulder. That's potentially on watch. I mean, that type of move takes you all the way up to that pattern takes you up to about 419, 420 on the charts. So we'll just pay attention to that. Markets are set to open in about 4 minutes. 4 minutes. Meta's lagging the market right now. It is down, gapping down. It's trading near the 230 area. So pay close attention to Meta. Shopify is another one that gapped up tremendously here. Let me just keep the spiders on. SHOP after that strong earnings. This one's also a potential short. If it takes out its previous high, preferably goes to about 64 bucks. That's where I'd be intrigued. Let's take a look at SoFi. No real trade there. We did get an insider buy from the CEO on SoFi, so that's a little bit of an intriguing purchase at the lows. We'll see if that anything comes to fruition there. So we have about 3 minutes till the open here. All right, so Bitcoin's catching a small bid. Gold is softening slightly. The Russell's just up positive on the session. Nat gas is still holding up. The Nasdaq is lagging right now. Alright, so it's a Monday. Let's just take it slow. We do have inflation data coming out. Not today, but in the near term. We have to pay attention to that because as that inflation data approaches, I believe it's on Wednesday, the inflation data. Let me just take a double check here. Yeah, you have core CPI on Wednesday at 8:30 and CPI. Alright, so markets are set to open here. Tyson Foods, Shopify, Zscaler's on watch, and that's pretty much it as of now. All right, markets are open here. Markets are open. Sorry, I'll mute my screen again. So these alerts. So nat gas is still up on the session. TSN is coming down. Still Apple gapped lower and is leading the charge down. We'll see if it catches a bid. It is pushing up quite substantially, so that's going to naturally help the S&P. Nasdaq is still the lagger at this point in time, hitting some short-term hourly support. Tesla gapped up and is reversing off of the highs right now as we speak. Tyson hasn't hit our level. Tesla's still positive. CTLT is down 25%. I did look at that in the pre-market, but I did not have a good technical level where I feel confident at. I mean, the only level I would get intrigued is at this double bottom around 31 bucks, give or take. So that is the only level that I am intrigued about. Coinbase is coming down pretty heavy right now. Nvidia is starting to sell. Spiders just went negative. The Qs are still looking a little weak at this point in time. So Tyson Foods is coming down, guys. TSN is the ticker. I'm going to do a 1-6 position because it's always riskier off of earnings. but it is coming down now. It's almost at that level. Be patient with it. Let it come in. Spiders are still weak, so that's always a headwind when stocks are weak. And you have the spiders weak, that's kind of a double headwind. Lots of relative weakness. It's tough to catch long plays when the markets are weak. But definitely keep Tyson. I am interested in on the long side. AMD had a quick pop up to 91. Saw a little reversal. Now it's coming back in. First level's coming in. I'm probably going to wait for the second level to see how these spiders firm up. But 52.50, here we go. 52.57. One more little dip on Tyson Foods. And we can enter on the long side. Oh, you see it's getting a bounce here. Anyone that took that first level, you're basically deep in the money already, and you look for about 50 cents to $1. I'm not filled yet. I want the second level. But you can see how the first level looks pretty good at this point. Spiders are still acting very, very weak right now. Nothing else I'm seeing as of yet. We're just being patient. Spiders are still coming down, so that's naturally going to put more pressure on TSN here. Alright, so Microsoft's rolling over a little bit. Tesla's almost given up all of its gains after that gap up. That's a little intriguing. TSN still hasn't hit my level. It's come very, very close. You can see here it's pennies away again. Coinbase is rolling pretty hard right now. Pay attention to TSN. It is coming down here, guys. We're about 4 pennies away here, guys. Oh, they bounced it 4 pennies away. Wow. Wow. Alright, guys, that level's off the table. Oh my goodness. 4 pennies shy from our level and they bounced it. Look at that. That's so frustrating. Jeez. You know, at least we know the level was sound, but it's off the level. It's off the table, guys. 4 pennies, we missed it. That's insane. The low was 52.61 and we had it at 52.57. Jeez, incredible. Alright, let's just go back to the drawing board. I don't like that level. I'd have to wait now until the even number of 52 to go along because that was the bounce that I was looking for. I'm just seeing if there's anything else on watch right now. You have the Qs still acting very, very weak. Let's pull up the QQQ. And the spiders. Spiders are catching a small little bid here. So that's interesting to see. So the next level on Tyson is only at 52 bucks. I would take that. And I don't even like that as much. Zscaler's still acting well. ALB's acting well. Home Depot's fairly muted today. So spiders are still hanging in there. You have AMD slightly negative. Oops, I'm around there. Gold is starting to reverse right now on the hourly chart. So tech is still weak right now. Apple, Tesla's still hanging on to some gains, but it's not that strong as of yet. Definitely not that strong. Jeez, take a look at this reversal on Nucor. Look at that reversal on Nucor. Wow. We are obviously short Nucor via swing trade. So the Qs are still acting weak here right now. And they are coming down a little more as we speak. Spiders are holding up, and that's the strength in the financials and the weakness in the tech. So money is slowly rotating out of mega cap tech, what looks to be in the financials, out or into the financials out of tech. Let's take a look at DraftKings. That's pulled in. Shopify. Shopify is actually interesting. Let me see if we have a short level on Shop here. I did say 64, I believe. You have that pivot there. That's important. Bitcoin's creating a little bit of a flag pattern. BITO. Let's see if we can have a long trade on Bitcoin. It is weak right now. But I'm eyeing up a potential long on BITO at these levels. Coinbase is still coming down. Markets are catching a small bounce here. Spiders are back to the positive side. The Qs are still lagging right now and are currently down in the session. So no trades as of yet. Sometimes you just don't get them to fall in your lap where you want them to. Tyson Foods is coming back down now, so I do think 52, even a pierce of 52, may be somewhat of a level we can play. PacWest is up 21, Palantir is up 4.8, American Airlines is catching a nice bid. Nat Gas is still holding up. Now the KRE is starting to reverse off the highs. So the KRE has had a pretty big sell-off here. KRE reversing. Look at this PacWest. That's reversed. WAL. Let's take a look at JP Morgan. Coming in a little bit. Bank of America was the only stock that Buffett liked. Wells Fargo. PNC, the super regional. That's coming in. Nvidia's starting to see some more downside. Bigger move. Nvidia's actually down 1%. leading the Qs lower. Tesla has pretty much given up all of its gains. Let me see if there's a long level on Tesla. Tesla's actually the one that I think can actually head higher if we get a little bit more of a retrace. Where I'd consider maybe picking up Tesla for a day trade scalp. Let's see here. Yeah, no, I'm not really seeing any real trades popping off the screen, and that's when you don't want to force things. XOM is acting well. No real trade there as well. It's kind of a tricky landscape here because there's nothing that's a really good risk to reward setup as of yet. Could change, but as of now, there's no real good risk to reward. And if it stays quiet, we will end the stream a little bit early. There's no sense in waiting around here if the markets are fairly muted and quiet. Meta's starting to see more downside. I think it's just important to pay attention to the Qs still coming down. I just can't believe this bounce on TSN. Oh my goodness. Look at that bounce. It still missed our level by a friggin' 1 penny. Hit our first level. That was the aggressive. This was a more conservative level, but 4 pennies. Jesus. Pretty crazy. Alright, so the Qs are rolling down a little bit more now. So are the spiders. Bitcoin's actually putting in a little micro bull flag pattern on the 10 minutes. Still very weak though today. Very, very weak. But it is trying to put in a little bit of a bullish pattern to move higher. Nat gas is still holding most of the gains. Most of the gains. QQQ. If the Qs were to flush, let me just do a little bit of a fib retrace here. If the Qs were to flush down into this 320.46 level, say in the next 10 to 20 minutes, that's a potential long trade on the indice, on the QQQ. So we'll keep the Qs on the radar because we may have a long trade there. Wow, big, huge bounce on Tyson Foods. Massive bounce. Pretty incredible. Pretty incredible. That was the trade. Anybody that got that, congrats. Zscaler hasn't hit quite the level that I would interested in shorting it. Let's look at Shopify again. That's still just slightly off, around 64. I do like it for a short. 64 bucks. But it's not there yet. Spiders are starting to roll a little bit heavier now. Qs are also seeing more sell side pressure. Just a little bit. Very muted. Silver's trying to push back up. Gold's catching a small bid. You have the GDX trying to push back up. Apple's still holding up relatively well. Copper stocks have had a nice bounce. McDonald's is just slightly negative on the session. Let's do a quick check on China stocks. They're reversing from the highs and heading lower. Consumer staples, Costco's seeing a little bit of sell side pressure, but nothing much. Monster's seeing some selling. CRUS is another semiconductor seeing some selling. DraftKings is seeing some selling. So it's a mixed bag here. Q's just made a new low, so did the spiders. Apple's trying to push up to fill its gap though. So despite the spiders selling, Apple's pushing up. A little bit of a negative divergence there. Obviously Apple's, which is telling me that there's a lot of selling that's taking place under the hood. Even though Apple's trying to push up, there's still a lot of selling that's happening today under the hood. But the volume's not that crazy today, so it's nothing too shocking at this point. Spiders are still trading near the lows. Qs are catching a small bounce because of Apple. In terms of an S&P long level, let's just do a fib retrace of this zone. So for the spiders, if we retrace to basically a pierce of 410, 409.94, we can potentially look for a long trade on the SPY. Just a quick scalp. Just a quick scalp. I'm also looking at Paramount for a potential long. KRE is about to go negative. A little bit of interesting dynamic there with the banks. Meta's still seeing some sell side pressure. Apple's pushing up. Microsoft's catching a small bid. Pretty quiet today, as of now. Fairly quiet. Doesn't mean it can't change, but it is quiet right now. Nat gas is just up 3.9. It's giving back some of the gains. Apple's trying to push up tremendously here, so that's lifting the market as a whole. If you look at the Qs catching a bid because Apple's pretty much recaptured all of the losses. And it's about to go positive. So clear strength continuing in Apple. Shopify's almost at that short level. Let me do a quick check of the volume here on Shop. We should have a decent amount here. 4.4 million. So keep Shop on the radar for a short trade. Spiders are testing the lows again. Nvidia just made a new low. Meta's testing the lows. Apple never officially filled the technical gap to the upside. And now what I'm observing is regional banks are under a lot of pressure. The KRE just went negative and gold is starting to catch a bid. So are we starting to see people dumping banks again and money rotate into gold? Perhaps. Look at that. It's pretty much an inverse move. Gold up, 3-bar surge. KRE pretty much getting hit pretty hard here. Even CVS is coming down, some of the healthcare stocks. Steel stocks have reversed and pretty much gone negative. That's a little intriguing sign. Quick check of Shopify again. That one's still holding up compared to the market. pretty quiet today, guys. Seems like the markets have a Monday hangover. They're just coasting today. No real craziness. Uber's positive again. Mara's down 9.58. Let's do a quick check of Mara. So Mara's hitting some support right now. I would love to see it flush down into this 910 level for a potential long. 910 on Mara. So keep MARA on watch for a long trade at this 910 level. I mean, it would imply that Bitcoin's likely going to fall some more. But I am interested in a potential long on that particular name. Microsoft is testing the lows here again. Zscaler still holding up well. Even Paramount is looking intriguing here. It's putting in potentially this little inverse. This is potentially forming an inverse. Left shoulder head, maybe you're developing a right shoulder here. KRE still acting very, very weak right now. Microsoft just made a new low of day. Communications are under a little bit of pressure. Meta's catching a small bid off the lows. Ford's negative, Amazon's negative, Shopify's still hovering away from that 64 level. Apple's still negative, Tesla's holding on to some of the gains. Let's take a look at that TSN again. The VIX getting a little bit of a bid here. Alright guys, I just went long Paramount here at 1648. 1648. Just starting a little bit of a position here at 1648. Long Paramount. I'm going to keep a tight stop loss on this one. Basically, my risk is going to be this, a close below the 1610 and I will be out of this trade. A close below the 1610 and I will be out of this trade. Actually, you know what? I'm going to make it even a little less riskier. A 5-minute close below the 1628 and I'm out of the trade. And I'm going to look for a little bit of a move up to, I'm going to look for about a 20-cent jump up. So long para, just to get a little bit of exposure. Tight stop loss. Nvidia is catching a bounce, so is Meta. Home builders are mixed today. Meta is seeing more downside. So communications are weak right now. Spiders are seeing a little bit more sell side pressure. Apple has not filled its gap to the upside, but creating another little bounce right now. And Bitcoin's putting a nice little intraday bull flag pattern on the 10 minutes. So anybody that's interested in playing the BITO could be a potential long at this level. This is a potential long at this level. Spiders are still acting a little weak right now. So are the Qs. Microsoft just made a brand new low intraday. Regionals are still under a lot of pressure here, guys. So pay attention to those regionals. Let's do a quick spider check. Still hanging in there. So spiders are still fairly muted right now. So we are seeing a little bit of profit taking ahead of that big rally on Friday. And maybe we see more ahead of CPI. That's the big question. Nvidia's catching a bounce now. XOM is starting to reverse from the highs. QQQ spiders are catching a bounce. Jeez, it's like watching paint dry today. It's like watching paint dry today. Alright, so Paramount's trying to bounce. The whole market is getting a bounce. Tesla's back up to 1.3%. Not near the highs already, but trying to push back up. Microsoft's lagging the market today. It's seeing some more sell side pressure as the markets are floating up. A little bit of an interesting divergence. So if we get another sell side program in the markets, Microsoft is a potential day trade short. It's actually looking fairly weak right now. And it's probably going to weigh in on this market. UVXY is just flat. GDX is pushing up to the highs. Shopify is interesting. It's coming up into that short level. Paramount's trying to bounce a little bit. Paramount's just hovering here, not really bouncing too much. Shopify is into that short level. You can see that it just missed the 64 level, went to about 63.95, missed it by 5 cents. So that 64 level's off the table. I would only consider now 64.35. Alright, so we're now in the money on Paramount. This is trying to cooperate. Big bounce on Coinbase, big bounce on Paramount here. So we're seeing the dollar trying to get a bounce now. Paramount's almost to target. We did get a bullish engulfing on the 5-minute. We're trying to put a bullish engulfing on the 10. Paramount right back down. But that is a bullish engulfing on the 5, so we'll see if it holds and can build a little base off that level. So Shop's now at that 64 level, but I wanted to go a little higher because you got that micro consolidation. But this is in the short range as of now. mRNA is an interesting short right now. Acting weak, putting in bearish consolidation to move lower. So if we get a downdraft in the market, mRNA should see a lot more downside since it's weak right now. 3.53%. Interesting. Paramount had a reversal back down. Still holding that bullish engulfing. I'll stay on till about 10:15, so another 7 minutes. Basically, I'm looking for about 20 cents on the trade. Stop loss is 16.28. I'm not interested in adding more to this position. If it were to stop us out, the next potential level that you could try to trade is retracing back down to this channel, and it would coincide with double bottom. That's probably the next level. Spiders are coming back down again. And mRNA is another interesting, if the markets break down, the stock should see more downside to about this double bottom 129. So that's a little bit of a day trade scalp opportunity. Simply you just put a stop loss above this wick here, or if you want to keep it tighter, above this 133 level. Paramount's still hanging in there. We had an opportunity to take a little bit of profits, but it wasn't really worth it. So look at mRNA. It's actually testing that level break, so keep mRNA on your radar for a short. I would love to see a little more consolidation, but it is on watch for a potential short. Oil's still strong. KRE's weak, gone negative. Zscaler's still up 22%. Impressive move on Zscaler. $114, I like Zscaler for a short. Spiders are still acting a little weak right now. Qs are seeing more selling. Spiders just had a big dip. Spiders just had a big dip here. And it is looking likely that maybe we come back down to this consolidation range. We'll have to see. Apple's holding it up though. It's starting to hang in there and keep this market a little bit more elevated. Paramount's still holding that bottom wick there. But that's a big sell candle. Dollar's trying to catch a small little bid. Look at this BITO. Seeing XOM pretty much continuous selling since the gap up and open. The Qs are catching a little micro bid. IWM is rolling over pretty hard right now. The IWM went negative along with regionals. So now mega cap tech is starting to see more of the relative strength. Qs are still slightly down on the session. SPY is also negative. So we're on the precipice of stopping out of Paramount here. Still needs a 5-minute close below that level, but the markets are looking fragile and they're looking likely that they may move lower. Microsoft seeing more selling. Spiders just made a new low. So this is where the markets get a little more interesting because the spiders just made a brand new low. So if you take a look at the spiders, they're testing this pivot little bounce. Looking very likely that you break that area. You still have this potential inverse head and shoulders forming on Paramount, but you really need to start to curl up on this right shoulder now. Spiders small bounce. Meta small bounce. 10-year yields back up to 3.5. The 20-year yields back up to 3.9. And the 2-year yield is just under 4%, 3.97. Nvidia is catching a bounce. So we're just waiting on Paramount. It is getting a small little bounce. We haven't stopped out. We're slightly out of the money. Spiders are trickling lower. Dollars trickling up. Apple filled its gap. So now this is where it's interesting, is the markets, now that Apple's filled its technical gap, is this where the spiders and Qs start to roll over a little more? We will have to wait and see if that is the case. But the dollar's trying to make a slight little move up. You can see the dollar's had a nice little surge. It's still trading in a wedge pattern, a little bit of a micro wedge. But it's trying to break out here, the dollar, at least in the very, very short term. Got a pierce of that level. Now you're trying to confirm. We'll find out in about 4 minutes if the dollar can confirm this little micro breakout. And it's looking likely. I mean, look at this weakness in Microsoft coming in. That's certainly interesting. Bitcoin is now seeing more weakness. Gold is still holding up. KREs are kind of telling that they were negative. Let's do a quick check on Para again. Paramount's trying to hold this level, but still exceptionally weak. Microsoft new low on the day. Tesla's starting to roll over a little bit now as well. Bitcoin's still holding its little flag pattern. It's kind of intriguing at these levels. Potential 10-minute doji forming on Paramount, P-A-R-A. We'll see if it can hold. The Qs are now falling a little bit more now. So Paramount's catching a bid. You may have a 10-minute little reversal candle. Markets are still a little fragile. You're seeing Nvidia, Microsoft, Tesla. Let's take a look at Amazon. Amazon's still negative. Shopify's still holding up. on the session, Riot Blockchain. Oh, I wanted to check Mara, MARA, for a potential long. That never hit our level. Riot is another one pretty much at the lows. Let's do a quick peek of Riot. Oof, this one's a tricky chart because you've been consolidating in this bearish range now for quite a long time. I mean, you do have some support at these pivots, but not that crazy about this chart pattern. If Riot were to flush maybe down into this 937 level in the next, say, hour, maybe it's a potential long. All right, we're back to flat on Paramount. This one should get a move up. This one should get a move up. Just probably had some last minute liquidation margin calls on Paramount due to that big drop on earnings. A lot of people weren't expecting that. Home Depot's weak today, Blackstone, Alexandra Real Estate, Kimco Realty. So weakness in the commercial real estates. Markets are very slow right now. Apple's pushing up, which is lifting the SPY and the Qs. So Apple single-handedly is now trying to go back to the positive side, and it actually is positive. So clear strength in Apple. Almost 10 minutes to 10:30 here. We're just waiting on Paramount. Steel stocks have had a nasty reversal. Some healthcare stocks are starting to show weakness. You have CVS that is actually down on the session 1.13%. And I hope CVS actually goes a little bit lower for us, because CVS, I'm super interested in a long trade on CVS, but it needs to go lower. Even at this gap fill around 68.70 is intriguing, but my math shows basically between 65 to 64 on CVS. That's where I have long levels. Qs are still so weak. Putting in potential bearish, but the volume is very light. And it seems that Paramount is moving basically tick for tick with the market. Dollar's trying to move up. Nvidia's putting in potential bearish. If you get a, if you lose this green bar, Nvidia is a potential short opportunity, day trade short, just to ride down a little bit, because you really don't have much support in this whole range. So if Nvidia loses these pivots, you could get a bigger move down. Still watching mRNA. That's off of the lows slightly, but it's just trickling down. Let's do a quick check on Pfizer. Even Pfizer's weak. Spiders are catching a small bid here. So Apple's trying to push up, Nvidia's seeing weakness, Microsoft seeing weakness. Very, very quiet day. In terms of sector performance, you have technologies down, you have healthcare down, so the two largest sectors are down. You have financials up, consumer discretionary just slightly negative, communications flat. You have industrial slightly down, consumer staples down, utilities down, real estate down, materials are up, XLE is up. So really 1, 2, 3, 4 positive sectors out of all of the S&P sectors. So that makes 7 red sectors. You have lumber up 2.18%. You have copper up 1.17%. Oil slightly up. Natural gas is pushing back up about 4% on the session. Look at that. Tyson Foods now is coming down. Now it's hitting our level. Tyson Foods just officially hit our level, but we don't want it anymore because you've had so much consolidation. You got your day tradable bounce that I was looking for. I mean, we had a potential, what is that, a 70-cent bounce, or actually a dollar bounce off that level would have been fantastic. There should be some support, but I don't like it because there's consolidation. I don't even like this 52 level. I would have to go to 51.50. And even then, it's not that great because this is just a day trade calculation. Pair is coming back down now. So still watching that one. MARA. That's caught a bounce. Or Riot Blockchain is still coming back down. Look at that. Pac West. Wow. Pac West going down. This would have been a great short. Look at that. Already down 16%. Jeez. Craziness. Let's look at the IWM. IWM also lagging. Down 0.5%. You lose these lows on the IWM, you're going to gap fill. That's not positive price action in the IWM. That's for sure. Well, I want to look at Crocs because that one is one that's been beaten down. Had a nice move off the lows. Let's look at DKNG again. A little bit of sell side. Shopify still pushing up here. Shopify still pushing up. So keep Shopify on watch for a short. I am potentially interested in that one. Spiders are testing the lows. 64.45 we can actually short shop. 64.45, 64.50. Approaching the 10:30 time frame, and the spiders are looking to test the lows. The Russell is at the lows. KRE is at the lows. So spiders are now trickling a little bit lower here. Dollar's trying to perk up. Microsoft looks to be putting in some intraday bearish consolidation to move lower. So pay attention to Microsoft. Meta's down almost 1% on the session. Microsoft's down 3/4. Netflix is holding up. It's interesting to see Paramount so weak, and then you look at the other communication side, Netflix streaming. Netflix is having a move, so pretty much an inverse. You're seeing Netflix pretty much taking Paramount's lunch, it looks like. Coinbase is coming down some more. KREs just keep bleeding. KRE just keeps bleeding. CVS keeps bleeding. CVS back under 70. I love to see that. I love to see CVS. And honestly, there's a day trade opportunity on CVS. If we were to flush into the gap fill at 68.79 today, that is a day tradable level. So let me just pull that up. So if we flushed into this gap fill, and healthcare is actually weak today, so there's a potential that we could 68.80, 68.79 in that vicinity. We can look for a long trade, just a scalp. It is even a decent level to hold as a swing, but I'm gonna wait for a swing down to these levels. So day trade scalp at 68.79. Spiders are selling off more now. They're testing the lows and potentially putting in new lows. Paramount's on watch here, triggering our stop loss. Again, we need a 5-minute close. So if we get a close in 43 seconds below this 1628 level, we will stop out of the trade for just a very, very tiny loss. It's nothing that's going to make or break our mornings, but it's fighting that level. You can see it is fighting that level. IWM still exceptionally weak. Tesla went negative. That's not good. That's not good at all. Look at that. That's a bad, bad price action on Tesla. Not good at all for the overall market. Nat gas is putting in consolidation. Nice sideways pattern on natural gas. Let's just quickly go over that. So natural gas, we'll go to a larger term time frame. If you look on the 15, this is a nice pattern. Had that gap up. Beautiful long consolidation. Obviously when the markets have opened and the pre-market have opened, you got some more volatility. Up, down, all around, but still meaningful consolidation to move higher. It's not bad at all. Your next big resistance is going to be this trend line here, which puts you at about around 238, 240, give or take. Paramount's still hanging in there, trying to move up. Shopify came basically, what was it, Shopify came 12 cents away from our level. And you can see natural gas is struggling at this area because what was previous support is now resistance. So you had your bounce, 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 breakdown, retrace, bigger failure. Now you're retracing and you need to get a close back above this key level, around this 227 level, 228 level, and then you could try to build a base above that. So it's all about little stair stepping its way up over time. Still on watch for Paramount here. Alright, so we're seeing Paramount move up a little bit more here. So we're still in this long trade. The spiders caught a small bounce, but this market is slow today. Very, very slow today. Regionals are catching a bounce. Microsoft's testing the lows again. So Microsoft's continuing to look very, very weak. And actually Paramount and Microsoft have very similar chart patterns. Down move, putting in consolidation. Microsoft down move, putting in sideways consolidation. So very, very similar chart patterns on Paramount and Microsoft, which isn't good to see because Microsoft's actually very weak today. The dollar's creating a little bit of a pop, so let's see if we got confirmation. Oh yeah, we did. Oh yeah. The dollar got a short-term breakout. So next level on the dollar, obviously you have this pivot high at 101.25, but it likely will pierce through there, and it will probably charge up to this level, this 101.27. That's where you're going to have your next bigger resistance on the dollar. But it is looking likely that it's going to move higher. And Microsoft just made a new low. So Microsoft made a new low. Nvidia's putting in bearish consolidation. So some short opportunities may be on the horizon. Even TSN is breaking lower. Look at this break on TSN. Big, big down level. Tesla's negative. Apple's seeing selling. Even though the Spider's made a new low, Paramount still hasn't taken out its low. A little bit of relative strength, but still tons and tons of weakness. Qs are testing the lows as well. Just want to see if there's a long level on Tesla. Just do a quick little calculation here. Just bear with me on Tesla. So Paramount's pushing up. If Tesla flushes down to this 167.67 level, we have a potential long trade in the work. 167.67. Just a day trade scalp. And the markets are breaking down right now. They are breaking down. Paramount's still technically intact. I'm watching on my other screen, but it is weak right now. Spider's new low. XOM selling. Bitcoin's even seeing some more weakness. Spiders are trickling lower, flirting with the lows. Coinbase is testing the lows as well. So lots of weakness in coin. Got an initial bounce off the lows and now it's seeing more weakness. The dollar's continuing to push up. Tesla's still coming down. I am interested in that one. Too bad Paramount hasn't had a big bounce. That's a little unfortunate that it's taking so long. Sometimes that's the way it goes. There could be, again, like I said, late margin selling occurring from that bigger move down. But with the dollar putting in a move higher, it's not going to bode well. The interesting thing is that the dollar, is it still negative? Dollar's still negative, but gold really hasn't responded to the move off of the lows from the dollar. And probably why we're seeing that is money's flowing out of banks into gold again. Let's take a look at the VIX. VIX is just moving up a little bit here. UVXY. That's trying to move up just a little bit, slightly positive. So we are above that 10:30 time frame where the volume is lighter, and we likely see the markets try to bounce here. Alright, I'm going to bring this stream to an end, guys, because Paramount, I've given you the parameters. I'm looking for 20 cents. I have a 16.28 stop loss, and basically the markets are very slow right now. Just pay attention to that dollar. If it continues to push higher, it should push the markets lower, but the volume today is fairly light and muted, so it's likely means that the markets could get a little bit of that afternoon float that we've seen ever so frequently in the markets. But as of now, it's a fairly muted day. No real winners yet. Paramount could turn into winner, but it is looking exceptionally weak. So tight stop loss on that one on a 5-minute close below this 16.28 level. So very small risk. Other than that, thank you all for tuning in. Unfortunately, some days we don't really get any meaningful trades. And believe it or not, it is looking like a little bit of a trend day on the spiders to the downside. So just keep that in mind. There's likely profit taking occurring, but it is looking like a trend day to the downside. But if that volume starts to lighten up even more, which typically after that 11 o'clock time frame it does, then the markets could float and grind higher. Thank you all for tuning in. We'll see you on the charts tomorrow.